Yesterday was undoubtedly a bittersweet and somewhat emotional day for Falcons fans, especially ones that are kind of my age who really only have one quarterback where they can say, like, when you really knew about football, Matt Ryan is everything that I've known about football and the Atlanta Falcons. He gave us the best run in franchise history. He took this place from like the depths of a really dark place with Michael Vick being arrested. You lose your franchise superstar. That wasn't just the face of, the Falcons. He was the face of the NFL and one of the few superstars this team has ever really had up to that point. Then Bobby Petrino darts. Most of the time you're looking at like, this is a Cleveland Brown-esque. You are the laughing stock of the league. Then this could be something that takes 5, 6, 7, 8 years to get out of. It took one because of one man, Matt Ryan. He delivers. He brings you to the playoffs as a rookie. He gave you a really good game against the Cardinals, who actually went on to play in the Super Bowl that year against the Steelers. And then the rest is pretty much history. You had a team that was consistently competing in the NFC, winning multiple division titles, winning the NFC championship once, getting there a couple of times, but always in the conversation for one of the top teams that you had to fear. And that was because of Matt Ryan. He officially retires yesterday after signing a one-day contract as a member of the Atlanta Falcons, delivered a fantastic little monologue about everything that it meant, brought back memories, brought back chills, maybe made you a little teary-eyed. And it's kind of sad because the last 3 years you look at it, everyone was trying to run this man out of the building. And then we get 3 years of Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, and Taylor Heineke. And you realize the grass ain't always greener, but you got to appreciate it also just was. What makes it even more bittersweet is the fact that he didn't get that Super Bowl. Yeah. And it almost made you think back to 2016. I've tried to block that day out of my mind, but it's hard not to. Trauma. It's hard not to think about that when he comes up there and he gives you that, and you're just like, you should have had the moment. You should have had the moment. You did everything you possibly could.
Well, I think what makes it even worse wasn't only the game was in the Falcons' grips. There is literally never. I won't say never. There hasn't been another Super Bowl performance that can match what Matt Ryan did. Like, not only was it in the Falcons' grips in general, but Matt Ryan was nearly perfect as anyone has ever been in a Super Bowl.
Especially against the Bill Belichick defense.
And I think
number one ranked defense.
I think that's what sticks in Matt Ryan's mind the most. It's like, I couldn't have done any more. And that is, I think, the perfect illustration of what football is. It's the ultimate team game. He said that himself. And I think what sticks out to me the most about Matt Ryan's tenure is he was never universally loved in this city like, Tom Brady was, or Patrick Mahomes, or not even just winners. Like let's go to somebody like, I think Phillip Rivers was more universally loved among Chargers fans than Matt Ryan was among Falcons fans. And he did everything the right way with class, while half of the city was, I'm going to go as far as, like you said, the last 3 years, even before the Falcons made that Super Bowl run, after the 2020 postseason run, people were yelling and crying for Matt Ryan to get out of Atlanta. 2010 as well, 2017 as well. Even though those weren't his fault, those losses, I think, past his prime is one thing, but he was in his prime and people were still yelling and moaning about getting this guy out of town. And I think that you said it best, is the grass isn't always greener. You don't think the Browns, who suffered through embarrassment for 2-3 decades without a quarterback, would have loved to have Matt Ryan? Matt Ryan would be arguably the greatest quarterback in one of the most storied franchises in NFL history. That just goes to show you. I think that a lot of Falcons fans are having maybe a little bit of remorse. Those obviously who appreciated him are just celebrating, but those who kind of bashed him throughout his tenure are kind of like, damn, we could have had Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke. Like, maybe we had it all right. And I think a lot of Falcons fans are kind of coming for full circle, those who at least weren't appreciative of him during his time in Atlanta.
Yeah, I definitely think most people that I saw tweet about it were definitely talking about how much he meant to the organization. And it really is just like a full circle moment, because what he did, I cannot stress enough the place that the organization was and the place that the organization had been up to that point with Matt Ryan. I mean, yes, they had a couple of good years in the 90s. They make the Super Bowl and lose to John Elway in 1998. That's a little bit before my time. Yes, Michael Vick brought back some excitement.
He won 2 postseason games.
You go to the NFC Championship and stuff like that. But the tenure of the Atlanta Falcons had really been kind of a laughing stock, bag over your head kind of organization.
Yeah.
And it culminated right before Matt Ryan got there with Michael Vick. You finally get something good, and he goes and gets arrested. Bobby Petrino darts while leaving notes in the locker room. One of the most cowardly thing I've ever seen a coach do. Probably the worst tenure in NFL history as a head coach. He goes 3-10 and just darts on his team and goes to Arkansas, where he continued to be a mess.
Loser.
And Matt Ryan just came in and
calm the storm,
and did it while everyone was kind of almost rooting against him. I'm not saying everyone, but a large portion of the fan base wanted us to draft Glenn Dorsey. Wanted us to draft and LSU, baby. Glenn Dorsey was an absolute stud at LSU. Turned out to be a bust in the NFL. I mean, talk about one of the best decisions anyone's ever made for this organization was ignoring the noise about Dorsey and going and getting Matt Ryan. But there at every turn, he had a portion, like you said, of people rooting against him, and he was able to just
handled it with grace.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you never once would have known it. You never once would have known that Matt Ryan had a portion of this fan base. Now, he did talk about it briefly, I think a month ago, where he said
Newton.
It was difficult to come in after Mike Vick because there was a lot of pushback about, everything was compared to him. A guy who in a lot of eyes, even if he wasn't the best quarterback, was their hero, was their God, was the guy that was supposed to take. Yeah. I mean, that was the way I grew up. I've told the story several times about where I was. I was at camp with no phone, no thing. I get a letter in the mail and they're just like, yeah, Michael Vick's no longer a quarterback. He's arrested. I'm like, get me on a bus home right now. What is going on? I had to wait 2 weeks, but yeah, I mean, you never would have known it. He talked about it for the first time after his career. And I don't think there's a better representation of the city. He's not the best athlete to ever play for the city, but as far as representing a football organization, which in my opinion is the number one athlete in every city is your NFL quarterback. I think the representation in the community, the way you get paid, the way you handle yourself, the leader you are, it's different than any other sport. Yeah. And the way that he handled that, you can't say enough good things about him.
No, you can't. And it wasn't just obviously his on the field accolades. He owns every major passing statistic in franchise history. But it was his off the field. I mean, you go look at everybody who is involved in the Atlanta community, Killer Mike, Arthur Blank, everybody who is in philanthropy in Atlanta acknowledges the work Matt Ryan did in the community, and that can't be understated either. I want to continue to praise him, but I would be remiss if I didn't say one last thing. How the Falcons handled his ending in Atlanta, they should be on their hands and knees apologizing, and it starts at the very top with Arthur Blank. Obviously, Blank and Ryan are very close. Blank considers him a son. Ryan probably considers Blank a father in many instances. But how his tenure ended in Atlanta should embarrass the Falcons organization top to bottom. There's no excuse for how it ended. And I'm not going to be, the 2020 guy who says we should have done this, we should have done that. What we shouldn't have done is made an outcast of what many people consider to be the greatest player in franchise history. It's embarrassing, frankly. I don't want to end on a sour note. If you want to say something positive, go ahead.
It's crazy. It was embarrassing, especially for the person that they were doing it for, being Deshaun Watson. And then that whole thing comes out and they were just left like, oh, we have to trade you. Yep. One other note, I thought it was interesting that he never really gave Arthur Smith praise. We will probably talk about that later.
This is what he said. We'll go one more minute. And I don't know if you watch a press conference. Go watch it if you haven't, because this is going to be, kind of paraphrased a little bit. He goes, I came in with Mike Smith, great, maybe leader of men, he said, or something very complimentary. Goes to Dan Quinn, says even more nice things about Dan Quinn, the man he is, the leader of men, again, what head coaches are. And he literally just goes, and then the one season with Arthur Smith, and then maybe he said I enjoyed it or something. It was crazy.
He pretty much just left it as, and then I played 1 year under Arthur Smith. It was like, I mean,
cool.
It was definitely there. It seemed like, and then maybe that's where the animosity comes from because of the way that ended. Arthur Smith had his pulse a lot on the personnel decisions, especially when he first got here.
No doubt.
I think we all wish he could have handled better. We all wish there could have been a Super Bowl, but it doesn't take anything away from who he was as a person, leading this organization, leading this city, and who he was as a player, which is the best quarterback to ever put on a Falcons jersey. And that's not even a conversation that can be argued.